What's a macro? What's up, guys? Welcome back to livingtheharblife.com. We're here with another video for you. This time we're talking about macros. What are macros? We call them macronutrients. What are the types? What do they do for you? We have a new blog post on the site, so I'll link that in the description for you guys to go check out if you'd like. But let's get into it. So when we're talking about macros, macronutrients, we're really talking about three things, and that's carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Okay, so that's what they are. Macros are the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And they're what really make up your calorie distribution. So when you get into, like me, when you first started your fitness journey, and you start looking into what you need to do to maintain a physique, to lose weight, to gain weight, or just maintain, you first really should be worrying about your calories. And then macros sort of fall into place. They sort of come up as you go through that. And macros, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, you find them in your food. And there's various food sources that we'll talk about that make up each, but they're what make up your calorie distribution. Carbohydrates and proteins each give you 4 calories per gram, and fats give you 9 calories per gram. So based on what you're eating, the distribution of the different types of macronutrients, that's where your calories come from. And so, you don't need to track your macros, although if you get into fitness, and become serious with it, tracking macros is something you may end up doing, but it's at least a good idea to understand where they come from, what they are, and how they provide you with what you need. And so we're going to talk about 3 types. So carbohydrates is the first one we'll talk about. Your carbohydrates are your energy source, okay? Now, you can get energy from other sources, but carbohydrates are really the primary source of energy for your body. Especially your brain. Your brain relies almost exclusively on glucose, which is a carbohydrate. And so if you're depriving your body of carbohydrates, your body will come up with this carbohydrates from other sources. And so for those of you that do like keto or carnivore or really low carb diets, your body is able to synthesize carbohydrates, specifically glucose, from other substances, other biochemical pathways. So you don't necessarily need to have a lot of intake of carbohydrates, but your body does rely on it for energy. Now, carbohydrates, like we said, they provide a role with energy. Your body stores them mostly in your muscles, and then your liver is going to be the next most packed in site with your carbohydrates. Only a small amount is actually present in your body, in your bloodstream as glucose. And why your bodies do that is, we really don't need that much present in the bloodstream at all times, but that glycogen that's in your muscles and liver really is there to help as backup fuel when you need it. And so for endurance athletes, you hear them always as topping off their glycogen levels. And that's what they're doing when they carb load, in a sense, the week or so leading up to their event. They're building up their glycogen and topping it off, so when they are participating in their event, they have something to rely on. So carbohydrates, also good sources. We talk about simple and complex. There's 2 main types. Simple carbohydrates are going to be what we can also refer to them as simple sugars. These are things like fruit. There's some in milk, candies, sweet things, fruit juices. Your simple sugars refer to your monosaccharides and your disaccharides. Mono meaning 1 sugar or 1 unit. Disaccharides meaning 2 units. And so a couple common ones, monosaccharides, it's going to be glucose and fructose. Glucose being the one that's most readily absorbed and used by the body. Fructose is a common sugar found in fruits. And then you have sucrose as a disaccharide, which is a common one in many other substances. Your complex carbs are going to be, things like whole wheat products, whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta. Sweet potatoes are a good source. Legumes like beans have a good source of complex carbs. Again, typically have fiber. Starches, they can be referred to as this. And basically they're larger molecules, so we have to break them down, and that's how we get the nutrients from them. Now, fiber, which is an aspect of carbohydrates and an aspect of the complex carbs, is super important. We'll do another whole video on fiber because it's super important. But fiber plays a lot of roles in the body. It helps with nutrient absorption because it slows things down in your digestive system. It helps reduce cholesterol. It helps remove cholesterol from the body, from the bloodstream. It helps you feel fuller longer. So fiber is really important, carbohydrate aspect. Our next macronutrient we'll talk about is going to be protein. Now, protein provides the same amount of energy per unit as carbohydrates, but proteins are not really a primary energy source. Proteins actually do a whole ton of things in the body. And when we talk about health and fitness, typically everybody's like, oh, protein, I need it for growth and muscle repair. And yeah, you do, okay? That's a huge function of protein, that they repair muscles and help repair tissue. But it does many more things. Immune function, enzymes, they speed up your reactions in your body, help things flow smoothly. Movement, storage of things. It does. Protein is super, super important. And so biologically, honestly, it's probably one of the more important nutrients. So you have to make sure your protein intake is high level, or at least the recommended level. And here, it's really individualized, protein intake. If you're someone who's not very active, you don't participate in weight training or exercise, and you don't have a very active job, your protein intake is going to be at a lower level than someone who's very active and very into physical activity. And that's, again, just because protein is needed to rebuild and repair and recover. And obviously, if you're someone who's active and your metabolism's working more, you're going to need protein to help with those functions as well. You get proteins are built from amino acids. And so if you've looked at supplements or products in the fitness industry, sometimes you'll see talk about amino acids. Those are the building blocks of your protein. And so when you eat protein, your body breaks it down, digests it into the amino acids, and then we can build it into whatever we need to. So protein, super, super important. And the final macronutrient is going to be fats. Now, fats have many, many categories associated with it. But there's three main types I'll talk about. With fats, you have saturated fat, you have unsaturated fat, and then you have trans fats, okay, in terms of dietary fat. Now, fats also provide many functions, and we would say is the second energy source, or the backup energy source. Once you've exhausted all your carbohydrates, that's where fats will come in. And so fats can produce energy for you, provide you with energy. They insulate, they protect, but they also are really important, as are proteins, which I didn't mention, really important with hormone function. And hormone levels can actually affect many aspects of your health and wellness, in terms of regulating appetite and levels of how you're feeling, ability to build muscle, recover. So hormones are super important, and they start with proteins and fats. Fats provide you with the ability to make certain hormones, cholesterol being one of those, which I'll talk about in a second. Your saturated fats, these are labeled as the bad fats, although really you still need them, so I don't want to put a stigma on them. You do need saturated fats. We just try to limit them. And the reason why they're bad is if you look chemically at the structure of saturated fats, they are straight-chained molecules, hydrocarbon straight-chain molecules. And when you look at these straight-chain molecules, they can actually stack very well and pack together. And so if you look at saturated fats, some examples, they are typically solid. And so you think of things like butter and that fatty white pieces of your meat, your animal products, that's saturated fat. And so they can more readily form solids and pack together, which is why they can be construed as the negative or the bad fats, because they do have the potential in excess to cause issues in your arteries and the cardiovascular system. Your unsaturated fats are going to be things that are bent. They have chains that are bent, and so they don't stack as easily, and they flow. And these are going to be your oils, or they're more likely to be liquid at room temperature. And so good sources of unsaturated fats are things like avocados, nuts, flaxseed, cold water fish. There's a variety of sources, and they are really important for you. Unsaturated fats, special class of them are called the essential fatty acids, your omega-3s, omega-6s. A lot of those you get from certain oils, seeds, and fish. Super important in many aspects, can be linked to brain development, reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. So lots of important functions with the unsaturated fats. So if you're looking at your dietary fat intake, you want to lean more towards your unsaturated, not as much towards saturated, although you need a little bit of both. The fats you want to avoid really altogether are trans fats. These ones are artificially made. They are unsaturated fats, so they should be bent, but really they are bubbled with hydrogen synthetically, and they're made straight in an effort to make them have a longer shelf life. And basically, they don't do well in the body. So trans fats are really not good for you. Really should try and shy away from those as much as possible. And those are in your, think like fast food, although I think a lot of fast food places are trying to get away from that, linked to the bad effects. But also a lot of fried goods or certain baked goods, packaged processed stuff. So the final aspect of fats, and I mentioned it earlier, it's linked to hormones, is cholesterol. Cholesterol, again, one of those ones that gets a bad rap, although new studies in nutrition and in the industry are showing that fat and cholesterol especially are really not that bad when you maintain your calories and you don't eat in excess. But cholesterol has two main types that we look at. HDL and LDL. Your low density lipoprotein, your LDL, that's your what we call the bad cholesterol. It carries cholesterol from the liver out to your cells and where it can build up. Your HDL, your high density lipoprotein, carries cholesterol out of the bloodstream to the liver where it's metabolized and excreted. So HDL good, LDL bad. And so you want to watch those levels. As long as they're in the recommended range, it's fine. But again, cholesterol is needed. Cholesterol is a really important precursor to a lot of hormones. It's also part of the cell membranes. Your cells in your body, they have the membranes around them. It's important in maintaining their structure as well. So I hope that was really helpful on your Macro 101, macros for beginners. Hopefully you learned some things. I threw a little bit of biochemistry in there. I'm a biology teacher too, so linking it to the fitness world and trying to make sense of what these macros are. So hopefully that was helpful. Comment below. Let us know if you have any questions, anything to say about it. Visit our site, livingtheharblife.com. Read that blog. I'll put the link in the description for a more in-depth look at this. And give us a follow on Instagram at livingtheharblife. We'll see you guys next time.